Hello and welcome to this section. In this section, we are going to be working on the DOM selectors. Now we know what the DOM is all about and we have examined the DOM in our last session. Now we are going to be working on the DOM selectors. Now these are document object mode methods that allow us to pull things from the DOM, thereby doing different things with the elements or nodes. We have different types of selectors that can be categorized into two. So firstly, we have the single element selector, and the second one is the multiple element selector. Now the single element selector helps you to grab one element with that is to say with the ID, the class, or the element. So basically, if we have more than one element and maybe they have a class assigned to a class attribute to the element, so if you're using a single element method, it can only help you to get just one element in the class list that you have there. Okay, it can only help you to get one element. So after getting the one element, then maybe you want to do other things with it, change the text, you want to put a method to it, fine. Okay, but the single element method will only help you to get just one item, just one class, if you have more than one classes that you want to get. While the multiple element selector will help you to get more than one classes. All right, if you have more than one classes, you want to use the multiple element selector. It selects virtually all the classes that you have there. It selects more than one classes that you have assigned to that particular element. So then it will return either in an HTML collection or a node list, just the way we have it in our last session. I explained briefly of what the HTML collection and the node list is all about. So we're going to be diving into what we have to do for this section. So we are working on two examples of the methods that we have for the single element selector. We have the get elements by ID or the query selector. Firstly, let's work on the get elements by ID. So we have document dot get element by ID. Okay, so firstly, let's try to get what we have here. Console.log document dot get element by ID. Okay, so we put there. So let's go down to our HTML file and look for, okay, so we see this tags. So we have an ID of tags name. Okay, so we have the tags hyphen name assigned there, put a semicolon at the end. So let's reload this. You see we have a tags name. Okay, also we can try to get things from the element. So let's say we have this, so let's see how we can get things from the element. Okay, so get things from the element. Now we have console.log document dot get element by ID. We're going to be using the tags name also. So we want to get the ID dot ID. Okay, so we will load that. That gives us a tags name. So let's put a semicolon, then copy paste, then we remove the ID, and let's say we want to get a class name. Okay, so we load that. You see that gives us nothing, but what if I come down here and I have a class of test? So if we have that here, if we load that, it's gonna give us tests. All right, now let's move on to the next stuff we have to do. So nextly, let's see how we can actually change the styling. So let's see, change the styling. Okay, so we have here document dot get element by ID. Okay, so we are actually using the tags name also. So we have dot style dot color, or let's give it a background color. Okay, then we give it, so we highlight using this. So we're using, you can use the XR, or you can use the name of the color, or you can use the RGB, whichever one you want to use. So better still, I'm gonna be using the X. So let's say 333, put a semicolon there. So we come down here and we see this has actually changed there. So I'm gonna change this now. So let's say we have color here, so I want to change the color. Okay, so I'm gonna use FFF here, so that will give us white as color. So we can also change the padding. We can do something cool. So we have padding. All right, so we give this 10 pixel. All right, so we will load the page. So you see what it gives us. It gives us a pattern around the element. So also we can also do something really cool. So I think you've come across some things on some website whereby you see that maybe you click on an element and and you don't see the element again. So we can put the display, we can do something like this, display to none. Okay, so it takes off everything that we have there. Basically what we are doing here, we can actually do this with CSS, but one thing you need to know that JavaScript is, well, I'm showing you this so that you can know that there is a dynamic aspect of JavaScript. So for instance, all these things we are doing now, we can do it with our CSS styling. But for you to know something, you can add an event to each and every one of these things that we are having here. These are methods, these properties that we're having. You can have an event to it. So for instance, maybe you mouse over on a particular element and it changes color. Then maybe you have an event, you click on a particular element, and just the way we have it here, the display just go off. So there must be an event to make it dynamic. So basically, if we can use CSS to do this, but the difference with the JavaScript is that it's dynamic. Okay, it's dynamic. You can add an event to make this kind of look much better and look more for very good applications of your choice. All right, let's move on to changing the content that we have there. So I'll comment on this. All right, so how do we change the content? Okay, so let's comment on this. So we have change the content. Okay, so still document dot get element by ID. So I have tags name. So we have dot text content. Okay, so we're going to change that to tags list item and put a semicolon at the end. Okay, all right, so you see it has successfully been changed. Okay, also we can use another way we can change it is to use the inner text. So we can use dot inner text. All right, so this I will just have this remove the item. Okay, so we can do this here, tags list. So also lastly, there's another way you can actually do this. Now this way you can pass in your HTML inside of this. You can have the HTML element inside when using the inner HTML. Okay, so for example, I'm going to be using span, so I'm going to have a span tag here. So I'll say span. Okay, close the span here. Oh, sorry, we'll start. Close the span. Put the semicolon at the end. So what do we want inside the span? We have tags list items. Alright, so to see that we actually have the right thing there, change, so just put style, not class. So I say style, so just put there. I have color, I'm gonna use red. Okay, let's put a red color. Alright, so you see the name is, the color has been changed to red. So basically this is how we can actually switch on the element using the get element by ID. Alright, now this is not actually a good way of putting this code, so better still, let's create a variable and give it task list. Alright, so we give it document dot get element by ID, so just pass in task name there, so put a semicolon at the end. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to take this task list and we are going to be doing this, paste it here. Okay, so this is a better practice and that we're going to be doing here, so it's better this way. Okay, so it's better this way. So we need to improvise anytime we are working on application. There's always a better way of achieving a particular fleet in programming. Alright, so if you reload this, it still gives us the same thing. Doc list is not defined. Alright, so what's that on line 19? Oh, sorry, not we did the wrong thing there. Alright, so that's fine. Now that is it about the HTML, the get element by ID. Now I'm going to comment on this. Okay, now let's move on to the query selector. The query selector, so this is query selector. Alright, so this is quite different from the get element by ID in such a way that this query selector, you can select any of the items, you can select using the class, you can select using the element, you can select using ID. So the difference between this one and the document element by ID is that the get element by ID can only pick the ID attributes, but this can pick any element. You can pick the class, you can pick the ID, whichever one that you have there. So we're going to have console.log. I'm going to be showing you what we need to do. Console.log. So we have document dot get element, oh sorry, not get element, we have moved, so query selector. Alright, query selector. Alright, so firstly, what are we going to select? So let's say we are selecting H4, or let's come down here. Okay, we have H3 and we have card body. Let's see how we can select this and tax name. Alright, so we have H3, not that, so put a semicolon at the end of the expression. So alright, so you're gonna have here, well, first of all, let's see what is going on here. Okay, so let's reload. Alright, so you see that it picks it up, okay, the H3. Now let's come back here and let's put a card body hyphen body. Oh, that's not an hyphen. Alright, that's an hyphen now. Okay, query selector. Okay, card body is card body here. Oh no, what's going on there? Oh sorry, we're supposed to put a dot there. Sorry for that. Is a class. Alright, so you see we have div.cardBody, so the class must have a dot at the front of it, and also we can also put here an ID. So you put an hash, we have tax hyphen name. So do that and it gives us the tax. So we see that we have been able to get the element, the class and the tax, the ID that we have on this document. Now let's move on and see how we can switch on these elements that we have here. Okay, now firstly we're going to have document dot query selector. All right, so what do we have in here? So query selector, we're going to be having the delete item. Okay, oh sorry, list group item. All right, so we're going to have dot list group hyphen item. Now we're going to have here dot color, oh sorry, style. So we're going to style it dot color. Let's give this a color of red. Let's give it a color of red. Let's semicolon at the end. Okay, all right, so you see it's successfully changed the color to red. Also, if we know in CSS, I believe you guys understand what CSS can actually do. Okay, so better still, let me use the element. So this should not be too much, so let me say li. So we're going to use a pseudo class. So I'm going to use a last child. I don't know if you know what the CSS3 can actually achieve. So we have last hyphen child. Okay, last child. So we give that blue. Okay, so let's check that. So see what you have here. The last is now blue. The last child is now blue, and also we can use the nth child to take this to the number of the ones that we have in between. So we can say nth child, and child, we put this here. So I'm going to put for 3. Now I'm not going to change the color this time. I'm going to change the text. I'll have text content. I'm going to pass in hello world. I put a semicolon there. Oh sorry. Then let's go check that. Then you see this has now successfully changed to hello world. All right, also if you know how to use the pseudo class, that's the first child, the last child, and the end child, you will know that using the end child we can have something like an odd or even, So let's do something with that. So we have control, let's paste this, and I'm going to take this to odd. Now the odd is, the odd word, the odd number on the list. Okay, so we are still working with the li, the odd number in the list. So basically the first one will be the odd. So what am I going to do here? I'm going to change this to background color. So I have background. Firstly let's put a star. Dot background. I'm gonna give it yep, I'm gonna give it this gray color. Alright, so you see, wonderful. Now I'm gonna give it the even. Alright, so even, so let's change this to even. Now I'm gonna change this to F4. Okay, so model. All right, so you see what just happened. Now we have the odd and we have the even. Okay, so basically you see what we have been able to achieve using the query selector. Now this, as according to what we have here, the query selector can only select one item that we have here. It can only change for one item, but the query selector, all we can be able to have the whole items here, all right, changed. All right, so that's it about the single element selector, we've worked on the get element by ID. Now we've just concluded the query selector. So it's very simple. You saw that we first of all we use the list group item using the class. Then the secondly, because the class is too long, I just wanted something short, so I use the li. So I have the CSS first child, we have the last child, we have the nth child, we have the end child having the odd and the even. All right, so that's it about this session. In our next session, we're going to be working on the multiple element selector, and it will be really cool for you to have this knowledge on JavaScript. It's very, very cool. You're going to be benefiting from this section very, very, very well. All right, thank you for this session, and see you in our next session. Bye.